our discussion today. We are having a soul therapy
Yeah.
session with my good old friend, Mojalefa Maluka. He was my college mate.
Yeah.
We went together to university and we've just been friends ever
True.
since. And well, he's going to be taking charge of this session. And he's going to be driving the session as we are talking about how to process your pain. So welcome to everybody. So Mojalefa will be taking over from
Yeah.
now as we discuss how to process your pain. Soul therapy. So you can take it up.
Yeah. So hello everybody. Welcome to our life coaching session. So it's more life coaching, and we want to reach as many people as possible. And yeah, so I run a life coaching company of sorts. And so I just felt to get someone on board who's been a friend of mine for the longest time. I believe you studied gender studies, no? At UCT. So
Yes.
yeah, it's really amazing. I studied psychology, but we thank God for the gift of life. And today I want us to talk about how to process pain. I'm going to start really, and you are allowed to ask questions. Please just note you are allowed to ask questions. This is going to be a podcast also. You know, we want to address as much of this topic as possible. Life is full of painful stuff. There's good stuff and there's pain that's also involved. You know, I grew up in one of the most painful places, I guess. You know, so pain is not something that I'm not used to, you know, but I I counsel a lot of people. I talk to a lot of people, and you've on many occasions, some have spoken about the subject of woundedness. What is that? What is woundedness, and how does it affect us? Can you talk to us about that?
Okay, thanks, Mojalefa. Yes, thank you to everybody who's joining. We welcome you. So we are just gonna get right into this. Mojalefa is asking about woundedness, what it means. So for those of you who already know me, I talk about brokenness. I talk about wholeness, and it's this has really become a standard for me because my calling is really based around ministering wholeness to people. And why do we even minister wholeness? It is because the way life has it, the way life is designed, is such that we are living in an imperfect world with imperfect people. So because of that, you find that a lot of people go through things in life that they never ever expected. They expected to be loved by their parents. They expected to be accepted by friends. They expected to be loved by their spouses. They never expected betrayal at any level in their lives. And pain comes in all sorts of forms. There's physical pain, and there's also emotional pain. And I think when we talk about woundedness today, we are focusing on our soul wounds.
Okay.
So we're talking about soul wounds. A physical wound, you can see it. You can see a person that they have been wounded in an accident or whatever has caused the wound. But a soul wound is one that happens in your soul.
Okay.
And unfortunately, with the soul wound, it's different because people cannot see what's going on inside the soul. And soul wounds come through disappointments, through betrayals, rejection, all sorts of terrible things that happen in life. Because, like I said, life is just generally imperfect. We live in an imperfect world, imperfect people who are just people as they are. They're going to hurt us. They're going to do things that are going to break us. They're going to do things that are going to make us question who we are, question our value, our worth, and things like that. So because life is like that, you see, it will create an atmosphere that can create soul wounds. You were expecting to be loved by a parent, and they reject you. You were expecting to be accepted by the person who put a ring on your finger, and all of a sudden they reject you. You know, people, like even people, it comes in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes it can be where you work. You experience disappointments in that place, and life in general can be an event in your life a loss, of someone you love, and they go, and or you experience an accident and it hurts you, or an illness, anything that can happen around you can cause those emotional
Yeah.
wounds. So, a lot of times people don't know how to deal with the emotional wounds. The medicine is there for physical wounds, but emotional wounds, people don't know how to handle and how to deal with emotional wounds. So, and we are here today pretty much to talk about those emotional wounds and to provide sort of like, a therapy session to talk about those wounds and how to process them and how to heal those wounds. Because the big challenge is, because these wounds are not seen, people hardly ever process them. People hardly ever look into them and try to deal them. They can have effects in their souls, but people don't know how to deal with them. So we want to talk about these soul wounds, such that we know how can we even begin to deal with soul wounds, because they affect us negatively in big ways. And I guess we can speak to that even as we go.
Because I in my own life, I realized that has been a part. It played such an interesting part in my life, where I never knew that I had issues, like when it comes to not having had the presence of a physical father there, and my father passed on when I was 3 years of age, and I got saved when I was 13, 14, but it remained one of those things to say, but sure, like there was that gap, and my mom did the best. I mean, my mom is amazing, and my mom, and it's so amazing that you can be this very powerful person, but still have wounds. And it's important for us that even with that going on, you need to be able to identify those wounds. Stuff happens in your family. You get injured by accident. And I think sometimes some people feel like they're scared to deal with the wounds because it happened by accident. There's a biblical character who fell because his aunt or nanny was running, and she fell, and he fell, and he was wounded, and he was hurt, and he was crippled. And I think, it's very, very important for us to kind of say, it may have been by accident, but it happened to me. And because it happened to me, I have the responsibility of having to face that and work on myself. And it's been a very, very interesting journey. Lately, I've been thinking about this to say, at some point in life, it's like certain switches go off in our lives for whatever reason. There may have been a power station that blew up somewhere and there's no power coming in, or a switch in the house, fails and then it trips the power supply. We have different parts of our lives. Just like a power supply has different things it switches on. And it's so amazing that you can carry on with your life. And while there are certain parts of you that have switched off and you are not aware, because or you are aware and you're just carrying on and muscling your way through life, but then there's this part of you that at some point wakes up and says, hold up, the plugs are not working. Something is wounded, something is broken. There's a bit of pain that I can feel when somebody they talk about, there's this phrase they're using now, you are something in the wounds. I don't know, it's a very interesting South African term that they're using. You are touching me in my wounds, something like that. But sometimes you don't actually know until somebody touches you in that spot, in that spot where everything else is okay. I'm an anointed person. I'm a great director. I'm a great manager. I'm a great this. I'm a great that. But then somebody touches you when it comes to you being a wife or being a husband. That maybe you are a bit of a lousy husband or a lousy wife. And then it hits you hard there. It hits you so hard because now they are touching you in your feelings. And that is so interesting when it comes to that, because then that's a pressure point. It's a place of pain. It's a place of woundedness. And sometimes I thank God because it helps to be vulnerable, someone. And maybe we can take it from there. The issue of vulnerability.
Yeah.
And I heard somebody yesterday saying, being vulnerable doesn't mean you are weak. Being vulnerable just means you are open to being helped, to being touched, to being authentic.
Yes.
It's one of the best things, I think, even when it comes to organizations and leadership. Being an authentic leader and a vulnerable leader can be one of the best things that can ever happen to you. So let's talk about vulnerability for a while when it comes to processing your pain. What do you think of that?
Okay. So, when you talk of being vulnerable, it's now allowing your wounds to be opened. Okay, when you have a physical wound, right? You need it to be, you need the betadine. You need everything that needs to be done to it. The betadine, the salts, solutions, everything to make the wound heal, right? And the bandaging and the whole stuff. But now you see and you have to be vulnerable in that moment of being treated. So it's the same with regards to our soul wounds. I wanted to mention that as I go deeper into that the reason why we are really talking about these soul wounds, you already mentioned this, is that you see a lot of times because they are unseen, our soul wounds are not seen. They're in our souls, right? And we can go about our business as usual and look, in quotes, normal. Look normal because people are just seeing me. But then they do not know what happened to me. They do not know that I faced a level of rejection. I had this gap of not having a father, of not having a mother. I had this loss in my life. People don't know that. And you keep going on with your life. But now the wound itself begins to affect you. Because now an unhealed wound does not go away. It's the same with an unhealed wound emotionally. If it's not treated, it does not go away. So unfortunately, what it does is that it sets into our inner parts of the soul and transforms into personality defects. I heard you saying words like you become a lousy mother. So you start operating from a place of dysfunction simply because you have allowed hurts, you have allowed woundedness to simmer inside you. I love this. There's a lady who says it, to ferment inside you. Yes. It ferments inside you. And when it's fermenting, a lot of things are going on there. There's a lot of rotting. There's a lot of discharge. That's why you have things like bitterness coming through. You have, expressions of anger you never understand where it's coming from. You have bouts of sadness at moments, and you're like, what is going on with me? Some people even suffer from depression. I know you know a lot about this depression. Yes, and it starts appearing to us. You fail even to parent because you have those inner wounds that you have not dealt with. You don't know how to deal with people, so it comes now out as a character trait that is dysfunctional, and yet you do not know that you have wounds. You have those emotional wounds. It's one thing for someone to be broken, but I think it's another level to be blind to your brokenness. Because when you're blind now to your brokenness, all you do is affect others with your level of brokenness. The broken pieces of your life start cutting into other people that you're supposed to love. It might be family, it might be relatives. You're exhibiting this characteristic, this bitterness. You have low self-esteem. You are insecure. All these kind of signs come through because you're broken. But you cannot tell the world. You have not opened up yourself now. You were talking about vulnerability. That's where vulnerability comes through. When you start noticing, or you start understanding, look, I have had a crack in my soul. I have experienced brokenness. I have this wound. I need to get it healed. Then you start opening yourself up. So the challenge a lot of times in opening up and being vulnerable is the shame that's attached to opening up. So I wanted to speak to the shame, because a lot of people want to present a picture that they have it all
True.
together, that their marriage is the perfect, that their family is the perfect family, that everything in their life is going perfect. They're rich, they've got it together. We come on Facebook, we look the best we should, we post the best pictures of our holidays, we everywhere we are trying to look
I think the
perfect.
issue is
So
expectation,
there's
Samu. Like
yes,
people kind
so
of
yes, there's that
expect you to
pressure.
be like that. So you kind of like act along because you kind of thinking to
Exactly.
yourself, if I become anything else, what are people gonna say?
Mhm.
How am I gonna be taken? I need to have 10
Exactly.
bodyguards behind me.
Right. So you see, there's a lot of, even like in churches itself. I think this is so big in churches. People get into their cars. The perfect family is there. Wow, they're Mamoruti, you guys,
Yeah,
the pastor,
you guys.
and you know so there's this pressure to present the perfect picture. So for you to become vulnerable, you see, and say, look, I've got issues in my marriage, we're not getting along with my wife, I've got issues, this man cheated on me, or I have had daddy issues,
Yeah.
I didn't have a daddy, so being opening up now becomes a challenge because there's the shame attached to it. And I think you have to be strong enough, because your healing is your responsibility.
Wow, say that
It's
again. I
true.
love that.
Yes, your healing is your responsibility. People, it might be someone's fault that you're broken. It might be someone's fault that you're wounded, but your healing still remains your
Amazing.
responsibility. And if you don't heal, you're going to affect generations and generations and create a whole cycle of brokenness, even for your children and your children's children. So you want to stop that. So for you to stop this, you need to be vulnerable to the healing part. I see a point here from Bombi, and she's saying vulnerability is very, very scary. Understandably so, because sometimes being vulnerable seems to result in more hurt. Yes, it can. So it's true. You can actually expose yourself, and hey, the world will talk. You can expose yourself. We thought everything was well with Maruti and his wife.
Exactly. I have a
I'm
story. I
trying,
have a story that I can tell you about that. Because
so it's true. It can result in a lot of hurt.
yeah,
But I think to just respond quickly to that
yeah,
before you take over to what you said. What are your thoughts? It's true. You can open yourself up to hurt, but I think when you start processing your pain and learning how important it is for you to heal, you have to build now resilience inside of
okay.
you to say my healing is my
Mm,
responsibility. And what people say about me, what people think about me, it now comes to issues of identity, saying, I'm not my mistakes, I'm not what happened to me, I am not the rape that happened
yeah.
to me, I am not because I've been divorced, I am not that. But now you're leaning into Christ, and focusing and making your identity being Christ identity for you, what God says you are, who God says you are. And it won't matter now what people will say, what people will do, and how people will react and
Mm,
respond to your vulnerability. And I know, Mauriti, you've been so vulnerable a lot of
true.
times. And maybe you want to speak into that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I made up my mind to say I grew up in church, right, all my life,
Mm-hmm.
and I've always been this great and powerful and amazing person. But I think for me, one of the things I realized as I started getting older was the fact that it was almost as if I was this Coke bottle with Coke
Ooh,
inside,
right. Yeah.
and but the glass was beginning to crack, because there was
Mm.
so much going on inside. And I'm still muscling a lot of things, but I realized there was
Mm.
something missing, and it felt like I was not being true to myself in many ways. You
Mm.
know,
Mm.
I felt like
Mm.
I had to put up a mask in order to
Mm.
be this perfect person that people saw, and
Mm.
it took me a while until I sat down with a psychologist, and we began to work through all
Mhm.
that stuff, to work through all that stuff like an onion, because spiritually I was on cloud 100. But
Oh
when it
goodness.
came
Yeah.
to my soul, my core, you know,
Mm.
there seemed to be that part of me that said, but there's got to be more to life than
Yep.
this, you know? And I think for me, what became a blessing was to learn of the principle of being naked without shame.
Yeah.
And it brought so much peace, because then I realized I don't have to act like everything is perfect when it's not.
Right.
Of course, I need to show courage. I'm a leader. I need to be strong. I need to do all these things. But there's a saying that says, unto thine own self be true.
Right.
And that to me spoke volumes, to say to me,
Right.
I need to come to a point where if somebody by some chance is stalking me and takes a photo of me and I am bare and they try to blackmail me, I need to say to them, go ahead. I wasn't doing anything that was out of character. That is what we call nakedness without shame. To say, I own the scars that I have. I own this, because these are battle scars that I have. And when you begin to see that, when you begin to see the scars you have as battle scars, right? Then you can say to people, frame me, do whatever. But I am still in God's image. I am still, that person that God, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. So I love what you spoke about shame. I think number one, we need to learn how to overcome shame. Number two, we need to learn how to deal with blame. Because I was talking to someone yesterday and they said to themselves, they said to me, I feel like I've betrayed myself. I was counseling somebody yesterday and they said that to me. They said, I feel like I've betrayed myself, and that spoke volumes to me, to say it becomes a heavy responsibility to be yourself if you are blaming yourself, because you're always with yourself. It's going to be very, very hard for you to deal with yourself because you are always with yourself. So you need to, at some point, do whatever it takes. Do whatever reconciliation you need to do. And deal with where the blame goes, and reconcile all your thoughts and come to a place where blame doesn't feature too much in your narrative. I can't sit here somewhere and blame everybody that was saying I'm a bad person. I can't sit here and blame my husband, my wife. I can't sit here and blame my kids. I can't sit here and blame my family. Once you overcome the blame game, then you can make more progress in terms of processing your pain and actually getting some payment out of it, getting some story out of the pain, getting a book out of that pain. You won't be able to process the pain if you don't deal with the blame game. Because I've realized that people that are constantly blaming, I always tell people this, regardless of what happens, whether it's at church or in my business or at work, I can't sit and be blaming everybody for everything that goes wrong. I always tell people, in fact, one psychologist said this to me. He said to me, you are blaming everybody else for what's going on in your life, but you are forgetting that you are part of the story. And somehow you contributed to the story. So what he was basically saying was, stop blaming or reconcile the issues of blame and try and deal with how do I overcome the issues of what this situation has brought on me. So that's number two, dealing with the blame. And then number three, accept that it happened, but don't let it define you. What do you think of that?
Okay, can you just speak into what you just spoke about before I get into I want to zero in on two things that you said. Firstly, that you said you were so powerful and anointed. I've known you to be an anointed man of God. That's for sure. And when you stand there to minister, it was glorious. You just feel the power of God, the presence of God. So a lot of people confuse being anointed and being whole. Those are two different things.
Love it.
God does not stop using you because you're broken, But then it's important still for you to deal with your levels of brokenness. And I love what you said, that you came to a point where you had to be true to yourself. Because as much as you are anointed, when you have not healed, there are parts of you that are going to even cut into the congregation, you know, and bring levels of brokenness to others, because you always say hurt people hurt others. So you might be anointed, but at the same time hurting people in your flock, hurting your wife, hurting your children, without even knowing that you're doing that. So I'm loving that. So I want to encourage people out there. It doesn't matter you think you're so powerful and being used by God in a mighty way. You still have the responsibility. You see, people blame. He was talking about blame. You can spend the rest of your life just blaming people and saying, you know,
Sure.
it's because of my mom, it's because
It's
of my
my
dad,
third
it's because
wife's
of
fault.
my husband. Exactly. But you know, when you don't take responsibility of your wholeness, when you don't take responsibility of your healing, it's so counterproductive in your life. You're pulling, it's like you are thinking you're moving forward, but all you're doing is you're pulling yourself backwards because of all this turmoil that's happening inside of you. So you know, this blame issue is something. It's someone's fault that you might have been raped, but it's still your responsibility. You have no control over what people do, what people say towards, and how people act towards you. You have no control over that. But where your responsibility lies is that you have control over yourself. You have control over your response. You have control over your emotions, how you feel. All those aspects still remain your responsibility. Like you're saying, remember you have that part to play, right? So, you know, I wanted to speak to that. Now I need you to remind me where we were going. You said now it's time to...
Now, here's the thing. People are taking exception to this thing of vulnerability. I'm seeing some comments. Some comments here about vulnerability. You know, some people, you know, are talking about, especially like the other person that you are being vulnerable to. And that's an honest observation, because as you said, there are some people that cannot handle your nakedness. They cannot handle a wounded Christ. They like Christ when he's doing amazing stuff. They like the boss when he's doing amazing stuff. They like the CEO when he's doing amazing things. They like the pastor when he's doing amazing things. But once he starts bleeding, and not even, you know, on purpose, or in fact, you can't even bleed on purpose. But I think what people are just saying is, what about the other person? Who can I be vulnerable to?
Okay, can I just speak to that? Well, you know, I think one thing that I've learned on my journey to wholeness is I have been a victim truly of you know, being vulnerable in the wrong place. And I want to speak to that. And I think, you know, a lot of people, surely we go to people because we trust them. We hope they are going to take our information okay. But, you know, for some people, our vulnerability is a juicy story. It's something to put on the tablets and like, guys, let's
we have a newspaper called
exactly. And while they're having breakfast, it's you they're talking about in the vulnerability. So I mean, that's just also part of life, that it could happen to you. But I think the level best we can do is holding yourself back does not help either. But you need now to find a safe place. Sometimes it might just mean going to that anonymous place. True. You know, a lot of people have a lot of stigma about going for counseling.
I see a psychologist, by the way.
Going to a therapist. Yes, you see. So if people are saying, yeah, you're saying, I'm going to a psychologist. Oh, he's losing it. You know, but I mean, you need to go past that, because your healing is still your responsibility. So find a safe place. It's not everywhere that you need to go to. It's not every friend who keeps your secrets safe. You see, so it's not everybody. So try to find that person. Try to find that right place. And you need help. I'm not guaranteeing you'll be safe.
No, we can't be guaranteed of that. Besides the professional help, healing, you know.
Yes, your healing still remains your responsibility,
and you got to do the best you can to find yourself.
If hurt comes, come on, heal. You need to still heal, even if the hurt comes again. You still have to heal. Life is designed in such a way that Hurts are always in every corner of our lives. So what do? We have to stand up. You see, I love this verse, which is in Ephesians 6, which says, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day. So which means the evil day will definitely come. You see, a bad day will come. People will betray you. The person you trusted will betray you and bring more hurt.
And betrayal is painful, Samu.
Yep. Very painful when it comes from the people closest to you. But what you need to do is to be able to withstand. You need to stand, and the only way you can stand is to hold on to Christ. He's the only solid rock on which we can stand. When all hell breaks loose, you go to him, and he's able to bring that healing.
So number 3, accept that it happened, but don't let it define you. I'm not sure if you want to speak to that, or we can move on to the next one. We've got 9 points.
Definitely. I do want to speak to it, unfortunately, but I'll be brief. I do want to speak to that because I think a lot of times, people are stuck in, why did this thing happen? How could this even happen to me? A lot of people have heard of this thing, when people discover their status, maybe when they are HIV positive, they go into this phase called denial. They do not accept that something like that has happened. But when you deny, you're exposing yourself to more danger. You will not be able to get treatment as soon as possible. You see, and yet you need to get on those ARVs as soon as possible, and you have the risk of affecting people you love, infecting people you love, right? But you see, acceptance is a key part.
I love it.
Of your it's a key part. You cannot go on if you do not accept that you were hurt. If you cannot accept your status that the man left, he's gone. He left you, he divorced. Yes, you need to come to a point of acceptance. Acceptance is where you are still living in a phase that you are confused or you don't accept what really happened to you. You don't allow yourself to be vulnerable and to heal in the way that you should. So it's important for you to take that part and say, I'm accepting what happened. He did this to me. It happened in the past. I have no control of what happened. I wish it would happen, but it happened. And why, asking yourself why, how could it, is going to be a waste of time. So you really need to accept what happened, because when you accept, then you're ready to receive the therapy that you need.
I hear you. So
welcome to everybody. Hi Tatena. Hi my friend Rutendo Chiromo, and everybody else who's joining. We can see that you're here. Please share with somebody.
So now excuse me. The next point, number 4, is acknowledge and release, which is what you just spoke to. Actually, you joined the
yes.
Don't ignore what happened. Don't repress those thoughts. Don't repress the emotions. Number 5, focus on destiny. Purpose always triumphs, right? It doesn't matter. I always tell people, because people always kind of say, but you are this soft person, and when you're on the pulpit, then you change, and and it's amazing what we call the power of grace, Samu, and the power of destiny. What you were made to be, no one can take that away from you. No rape, no abuse, no neglect, nothing takes that out of you. You look at the life of people like Israel Houghton, who's a Christian musician. You look at really many stories of people that were neglected and dumped. There's a man, the founder of Apple, Steve Jobs. I mean, he was abandoned by his biological parents and was adopted and was raised by an adoptive family. And he grew up there, and destiny was still locked inside of him. And I think it's if we are going to really kind of cash in on the pain and process the pain, it's important to keep our eyes firmly on what destiny is all about, regardless of how many times we fail in life, and we do, regardless of all the challenges, of all the switches that go off in our lives. Destiny still keeps us going to a point where then you realize, oh, snap, there's a switch that's been off for quite a while. Let me go put it up again. But that's the power of grace. That's the power of realizing the purpose that's locked inside of you. regardless of what happens. I
Mm.
use all the things that have happened to me as a recipe for my next book, as a plot
Right.
for my next book, as a theme for my next book. Because we are all
Mm.
telling a story. Our lives are a story. So I always tell people
Mm.
my life is a story of hope. So it
Mm.
centers around hope. Hope is my destiny. Hope is my destination. So I think for us,
Mm.
it's key for us to understand that, funny enough, the juicier the story, the more it sells. I
Yeah.
was born rich, I lived rich, I died rich is not a nice story.
Boring. Boring.
So what do you think of that? Focusing on destiny as a way of processing your pain.
Right. I love this point. Why? Because you see, it's like a lot of times, when we go through pain, in the moment of pain, we ask ourselves so many questions. We are down there, we are depressed, we are crying. And we say, Lord, why am I even going through this? And I have seen, like you're saying, a lot of times that the place of your greatest pain, most of the time, if you take a good
Yeah.
look, is the place of your greatest purpose, is the place of your greatest impact on humanity.
Yeah.
God has this way of using our pain of turning our
Yeah.
pain into purpose. Like you're saying, it becomes your next best-selling book. But when you're going through the process, it's hard to see things that way because things are happening to you. You are the one who has lost a limb. You are the one with a disabled son.
Yeah.
You are the one whose husband or wife
Yeah.
left you. But during that moment, it's difficult to perceive things that way. But I believe people need to change their perspective to pain and ask the right questions.
Okay.
God, what is your intention with me going through this experience? Instead of asking why, you are asking God, what is your purpose in all this? How are you being seen in my painful
Yeah.
experience? How are we being? And usually the answer speaks to purpose. And it's important now for you to allow yourself, to allow every step, the learning that goes on during that time of pain, because most of the storms, they're not there to destroy you, but so many lessons come through out of that storm. I can give you an example of what I do now, speaking to issues of wholeness and brokenness. A lot of things that I say are not just theoretical things. These are things that I experienced. I talk about steps, I talk about healing, I talk about forgiveness, I talk about, identity. All those things I talk about is because I went through them. And God taught me that you can actually find yourself. You can actually heal from rejection. And now I'm using that to bring that healing to other people. So when you start now seeing purpose even in that pain, and focusing on God's destiny for your life, it will heal you as well as bring healing to other people. Healed people heal others. That's just the way it is. It's just a chain reaction, and you need to see your pain as purpose. All things work together for good. No experience in your life. A pastor friend of mine, Pastor T, always says, nothing is wasted. No experience
Awesome.
is wasted before
Yeah.
God. God has a way of turning that. Romans 8:28. He turns all those bad things. Think of Joseph. All those things that people meant for evil, God turned them for good. So there is always purpose even in those painful experiences.
Now, Samo, you
Yeah.
said something about feeling, right? And for a lot of people, it goes back to the issue of vulnerability again. At the moment, we are dealing with the whole thing of Black people being, really in one of the most challenging times. And I think it's globally. It's not just in the United States. How would you recommend that we deal with the pain that we are feeling? Whether it comes to issues of feelings, because we've been going through pain throughout the year, whether it was African people being chucked out of their homes in China, just all kinds of things happening, all around the world right now. America is on fire. How do we really process this kind of pain? Because it's quite a hard thing. In South Africa, it's still there, by the way. Hey, A lot of African people are going through a whole lot of pain. Yeah.
Mm. I think as I speak to that, one thing that I've seen most of the time that challenges people is that when people go through something that's painful, it can be rejection that comes even in this kind of racial, prejudice, or whatever form of rejection people go through, or whatever form of pain people go through. People struggle to separate their pain from who they are. They usually allow whatever is going on to define them. And when you start defining yourself with the pain, and that becomes the way you see yourself, you have already lost the battle.
Oh, wow.
A lot of times it's all about perspective. What another person says about you, really, as long as you do not allow it to become your definition, it doesn't matter. You are the one who gives power and relevance to what people say about you, about who you are, whether it's the color of your skin, whether it's about your character. You are the one who allows that to take weight and to take space in your life. What are you thinking about that yourself? How do you even define yourself? Is your pain defining you?
I love it.
Right? And the key is to say, no, I am not my pain. I am not what other people say I am. I am not who they say I am. I'm God's own. I'm God's loved. I'm God's approved. So at the end of the day, I know it's easy for people to try so hard to fight the person who has done bad things to you or who has rejected you or prejudiced, whatever. But that battle is really pointless. The key is to choose your battles wisely.
Sure.
And the greatest battle that we have is our inner battle. Well, how do we define ourselves? How do we even think of ourselves?
Dealing with our inferiority complex.
Shout to me. Yes. If you shout to me and say, Samuel, you are like this, this, the only thing that will make it work is whether I accept it or deny it, So if I do not accept it, then it won't define me. Then it won't have that sting on me. And it won't make me react in any way. I keep going because you know who I am. I am God's own. I'm God's love and valued. Christ died for me. I am valuable and I'm worth because the blood of Jesus was shed. No price tag to that for my sake. So it's all about self-value and how you see yourself. That's what
I love it. I think you did justice to that. So number 6, avoid ruminating. And that one is one of those where you find somebody just dwelling on the negative thoughts, like literally dwelling on, shoulda, coulda, woulda, living in regret. The honest truth of the matter is that most of us have things we wish we could not have happened or we couldn't have done. We wish we could have done certain things, but there's a grace for today and there's a grace for tomorrow. And I think for me, that's one of the most amazing things ever to say, yes, I grew up without a father. Yes, I wish I could have done better at university or whatever. But there's grace for today and there's grace for tomorrow. And that is the most powerful thing, to say the sun shines on the righteous and the unrighteous, on everybody. In other words, we all have an opportunity to manifest greatness inside of us, to manifest brilliance that is within us. So I think for us, it is important what you focus on, what you spend your time thinking on, what you spend your time meditating on. There's a term in psychology called mindfulness. And most people think it's like yoga and all those strange things, But mindfulness is basically saying, you know what, I'm choosing what to focus on and what I allow my mind to focus on. I'm going to allow my mind to be mindful of what is important, to pay attention. Actually, what it means is to be in the moment. It's so amazing that pain can steal so much of your time, Samu. So much of your time. You spend so much time wishing that person would die and choke, you know.
Wow, you know why I'm laughing? You know why I'm laughing? I had this discussion with a friend of mine. I think she's
Yeah.
watching Angeline Nyareza. We were saying, we're thinking, do you know you can actually have a wasted day? You look at your day and you're like, I literally wasted my day. You were angry throughout the day. You were, mulling over painful things, wasting your day. So the thing here is, I think we are our worst enemies most of the times. We are our greatest enemies. Indeed, people do come and they hurt us. I do not disregard that. But how we respond to the hurt is the worst part. Okay, so he said you're worthless. So what? Are you worthless? Really? Are you? Are you? So she said you've been a failure all your life. Fine. That's what he thinks.
Wow.
Have you been a failure all your life? So it's so now you spend time now. Oh, and then the other year, yes, I did fail. Look, I can't even keep things together. You start bringing evidence for yourself that you are what they have said you are. And you become your worst critic and your worst enemy. And you think of the things that happened in the past. You say, we don't have the ability to change what happened in the past. There's no superpower, no
none whatsoever.
Doesn't change what happened in the past. He has no promise for changing what happened in the past. But now the power and the help that we have is changing our now and our future. We have control over our emotions, how we feel. People have pity parties for days. I was laughing with one of my friends. She would say, I would spend a whole day telling myself today is a day for crying. I'm just coming home and I'm just going to cry, And it's so funny we do that. And when you cry, you bring all the emotions, all the negativity, all the pain, all the bitterness. Yes, I mean, there are two types of crying. There's a crying that wants you to release. I'm not saying don't cry about your issues, but then there's a crying that welcomes all the demons of depression, of suicide, of witchcraft. You welcome them all because they're saying, I want to hate the person who hate me. I can't see them becoming, having progress in their life. All that bitterness comes through, all the pain. I'm worthless. And then what's the next best thing? You're thinking of, you're thinking of taking your life away. You're thinking it's worthless. But we have this power, guys. I don't know where you are right now, and I want to speak to that somebody that you've been spending a lot of time in your pain, not from a powerful place, but from a place of just limiting you and wishing you end it all. Don't do that. Don't do that. There's hope for you. There's a tomorrow and there's a future. Don't defeat yourself with yourself. You have inner power. I call it personal power. To stand up. God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and the sound mind. And He can give you that sound mind. He can give you that love, fill you with that love that you are needing and so desperately looking for. And He can give you the power to move from that place. So let's get the power and get moving.
Wow. So everybody, we still have quite a lot of points to go through. So we are going to cut for today. I think we really did so well. So Samu, I need you back. We are not done.
Okay.
In fact, as you are speaking, really something came up, which is the issue of gender-based violence. And I know you are very strong on that topic. So we will try and mix that up in our next session, which is going to be part 2 of how to process your pain. So this is going to be part 1. I have an Apple podcast called Mojalefa Maluka Life Coaching, Living with Excellence. So it will be found there. I also have other platforms that I use. So to everybody that tuned in, thank you so much. Please find me and find my page, find Samu's page, and then like our pages. I think we are going to continue with this because we still have about 4 other points. So there will be a part 2 that comes with this. And thank you ever so much, everybody, for tuning in. I really appreciate it. And so we are really going to be carrying on with this. So thank you so much, Samukile.